cool kids doing cool stuff here at the Smashterpieces, where we are smashing things to pieces. You thought this had to do with Smash Brothers? Nah, bro, we're smashing stuff.
You're being awfully presumptuous by saying we are at all cool.
Here's the first thing. Shh, they don't know that. Here's the first thing. We're gonna crush this man's skull.
What?
Hello and welcome to Smashterpieces, a casual walk through the history of the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate roster. My name is Joe.
And I'm Matt.
And if you're new here, on this show we are playing one game for every single character in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. And today's game, we're here to talk about the game representing fighter number 66, Simon Belmont. That is the 1986 NES game, Castlevania.
Simon was announced just in time.
Oh my god, boy was he. I'm pretty sure he was announced, I think, the day before we recorded Kid Icarus?
Something like that. It's a good thing I took 8 years to finish that game.
So, I'm really excited for this, actually. I think this is going to be a really interesting episode, an interesting game to talk about overall, because we both seem to, from what I've gathered, we both seem to differ in certain spots, but in a lot of spots we seem to agree.
I think I'm going to try to be pretty fair to the game. I got kind of mad, on my stream. And if you want to see me be really negative about it, you can look at the stream archive. I'll have it up on my YouTube by the time the episode airs. But it's just I'm gonna be nice to it. I'm gonna focus on what it did well, because I have a feeling you're gonna focus on what it didn't.
Not entirely. So I do think I want to start with, what did the game do well? And I think you have a lot more praise for this. I want to precede anything I'm about to say with, I think Castlevania is an okay game. I do not think it is bad. Boy, is it not for me, and also, is it not perfect? I do think that this is the first game on the entire list that we've played so far, number 4, that it is considered a classic. None of the other games before this are really considered that. Kid Icarus is known, sort of, because it's an old game that some people like. Nobody in their right mind is going to call Ice Climber a classic. Duck Hunt. So, Castlevania is the first game, and honestly, this and the next 2 games are all games that are roughly considered classics. But I didn't really enjoy my full time in it. But let's start with, what does this game do well? Because it does a lot of things well.
I'm gonna say, so, the last two games that we've played, every game that we've played with a movement system so far has had a complete garbage movement system. And Castlevania is the complete antithesis of that. The act of moving around and swinging the whip and aiming to hit enemies and everything in this game is super fun.
Yeah, I think Simon moves a little bit awkwardly, but because the entire game is designed around the way Simon moves, you can kind of forget that pretty easily.
I never got the feeling that he moved awkwardly. I thought that he moved really, really well. And he moved in such a way that you had to be deliberate with everything you did, but that's not a bad thing. That just means you have to be more careful and commit more. Which I thought was great. I really think for the most part that this game succeeds a lot in its levels and in its just generally playing as Simon Belmont. I think that's awesome, and I cannot wait to see Simon in Smash Brothers after that too. Because if he's half as fun to move around in Smash as he is in his game, he's gonna be one of my favorite characters.
I do agree that I think it's a little bit awkward to control, mainly just his jump arc, but again, levels are designed around the jump. There's no point in this game where it's like, land on this single block. This isn't Kid Icarus.
Well, yeah, this is a good game. Like, land on this single block is never really good design. And it's like, there are times where you have like a thin window where you can land, but the hitbox actually works. It makes sense. The hitbox is like, for jumping and moving, actually matches how it looks. Which apparently is a pretty tough thing to do for NES games.
Yeah, I actually cannot believe this came out the same year as Kid Icarus. Like, that should be considered the final nail in the coffin of my opinion on Kid Icarus, to be honest. Because, like, this game has some of the same issues as Kid Icarus, but it the way that it handles those issues and the way that it sort of hides them and makes them work is much better than anything that Kid Icarus attempts to do with those issues, i.e.
nothing.
Literally not a goddamn thing.
Kid Icarus does not address its issues. It just doesn't try.
I feel bad for going back to continue to punch up on Kid Icarus, but like, sorry, that game deserves it.
It's not a good game.
It's not a good game. Yeah, I don't have. If you want to keep going with stuff you think the game does well, you'll probably have a lot more to say than I do. Because as should be very clear at this point, me and this era of video games do not get along.
I think what it comes down to is like that's really like that's the crux of how it goes for like the movement of the game, the way that the whip feels. It all just feels so good. And with very few exceptions outside the bosses, I felt like I never felt like, oh, that death wasn't my fault. There was that one level that was kind of bullshit with like I think it was in like a sewer or something. It looked like a sewer.
Where that one specifically, where like they specifically designed the level to be like, haha, you thought that was a platform. Well, it's not. Fuck you. Haha, you thought this was part of the background. Well, it's not. Fuck you.
And that's like a clarity of vision thing on the NES. Like that's its own problem. But like the level design in that isn't bad. It's just the visual clarity of the NES doesn't do it any favors. For the most part, I'd say that like this is a really solid game until you get to the bosses. I didn't like the bosses at all, but I felt like the levels themselves were all really fun. And like the whip is such a cool weapon. I loved sort of positioning myself for the best way to get hits on enemies. Like having a long range instant hit weapon like the whip is just so satisfying, and it's something that I can't offhand remember ever really being in games that I've played. And it's not like when I say instant hit, even it's not instant hit. There's like
he's got a wind up.
Yeah, there's a wind up to it that makes it really satisfying when it actually hits. Like I think that it just feels incredible to be playing a level in Castlevania.
So, on the subject of the whip, I suppose I'll bring up my criticism. I don't think you came to the same conclusion, but you didn't really break a lot of candles.
I broke a fair bit of them.
Fair bit of them, but not like I made an effort to break as many as I could, because like that's technically what you're supposed to do.
I would get the upgrade and then just be like, okay, I'm good.
Well, I have a problem with the upgrade specifically. So, hear me out, because I don't know if I'm going to be able to explain this well. But I feel like I have a point here, and those are always the most dangerous moments. The whip upgrades are pointless.
To an extent, yes.
I don't mean that as in like they shouldn't be in the game. I think they should be in the game, just not the way they are.
They're balanced in the player's favor way too hard.
Well, like, so here's the thing. When you die, you lose your whip upgrades. You get 2 whip upgrades. One that turns your whip into a ball and chain, and then one that makes it a lot longer. Within 5 to 6 candles destroyed after dying, you will have a fully upgraded whip.
Yes. Every time.
And at that point, why bother? Why bother having the upgrades? Just start with the long whip every time.
Yeah, it doesn't make a ton of sense to me.
And also, it feels like the game is balanced around assuming that you have the long whip.
Yeah.
Not super hard, mind you. Like, it's not, if you don't have the long whip, you're just screwed. Well, if you have the fucking pool noodle that you get when you start, then, yeah, you're kind of screwed. But, like, it's never to a point where you cannot beat this level without a fully upgraded whip. But it does feel like this level was made with the assumption that I would have the fully upgraded whip, because why wouldn't I? So at that point, why bother putting the upgrades in the game? Just give me the fully upgraded whip from the start.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree on that one. There is a matter of it is too generous to the player in that regard.
Like, I don't think it breaks anything. I don't think it's harmful to the game. It kind of confuses me why it's in the game in the way that it is, because it doesn't seem like it serves any purpose.
Yeah, it's a why bother kind of thing, and they could have taken the opportunity to do more interesting things with like what was in the candles than having whip upgrades, I think.
Yeah,
and they do have sub weapons. The sub weapons are cool. I found myself enjoying the holy water the most. I felt like I got the most mileage out of it.
I think the holy water is pretty much considered one of the better ones. It's that and the boomerang cross are the two, I believe, that are considered just super good. The axe is kind of, it's a thing.
The axe is good if you get the angle right, which is not an easy thing to do, but if you get the angle right, it's pretty damn good.
I pretty much only used the axe against the very first boss, the vampire bat. And then, what else even is there? There's the knife, which I'm pretty damn sure that the knife is in the game specifically to screw the player over. Now let me
because it's useless.
Kind of. Let me explain exactly what I mean. When you collect a sub weapon, the sub weapon you had before is removed. It's replaced by this new weapon you just picked up. So in the infamous hallway right before the boss fight with Death, which I will talk about that at length later, or possibly right after this, I don't know. Just keep in mind, I'm going to come back to that. Don't you fucking worry. But in that hallway, obviously when you're going to fight Death, the most ideal situation is to get there with holy water. One of the candles in that hallway drops the dagger. And I have no doubt in my mind that was purposely put there so that you would accidentally pick up the dagger and not have the holy water anymore. And that's what the dagger feels like it is to me, because, like you said, it's useless. It throws in a straight arc, and that's all it does.
I'm not a huge fan of the idea of you only have one sub-weapon at any time.
I think that was specifically just a thing balanced around what the NES could or couldn't do, to be honest. I don't know if that's a thing that changes in future Castlevania games. I've never played any of the others. This was the only one I had ever had any experience with. And there's only like 4 or 5 games that are like this one, and then they become what has basically become known as Metroidvania as of the PlayStation 1 when Symphony of the Night comes out. They change genres, basically. I want to say that's an NES limitation that came out of that.
I guess.
And there's also the stopwatch, which you called something else.
The stand.
Yeah, it's the stand. We're watching JoJo Part 3 right now for the first time, so...
We're very, very near to the end of Part 3, specifically.
We sure are. So, Matt referred to the stopwatch as his stand pretty much exclusively.
I made a point never to call it anything else. It's my stand. And I hope that the stand is in Smash Brothers, so I can continue calling it that there, as I play as Joseph Joestar.
I don't think it is. I don't think that one's one of Simon or Richter's moves.
I will make it so.
So do you have anything else on the note of things Castlevania does well before I jump into my criticism hour?
Well, it's an NES game. There's not much else to it. I've said pretty... I feel like I've said most that there is to say, unless we want to get into the weeds and, like, critique individual pieces of it.
I mean, that's up to you. I got all night.
Nah, I don't think anyone's here for that.
Well, let's get into the, what did Castlevania not do super well? And the first, most obvious answer to that is the bosses.
All of them.
All of them. This game has 18 stages. I believe each area is split into 4 stages or something like that. 3 or 4. Somewhere around there. And so you've got the vampire bat, which is inoffensive. It's not terrible.
It shows up as a regular enemy later.
It sure does. But he's not super bad. I didn't know he could spit fireballs until he spat a fireball at you. I had never seen him do that. He didn't do that during my fight.
Yeah, I'm bad at video games. What do you want from me?
And then you got the Medusa head, which with the stopwatch is like trivial. She's the only boss that the stopwatch works on. So if you have the stopwatch, you win pretty much right when you walk in the room. Because she just can't move. And then you have the mummies, which was, I believe, your first experience with, oh, this boss sucks.
It sure did.
This isn't a good boss.
Sure isn't.
Then you've got who I have lovingly taken to calling Frankincense and his merry man. And I refuse to call them anything else.
Creature and the flea man.
But that boss also sucks because it takes the most annoying enemy in the game. Which, you want to talk about the flea men real quick? While we're on the subject?
I mean...
There's a reason why they are one of the most well-known Castlevania enemies.
They're not terribly interesting.
And it's not a good reason.
I mean, I just think, okay, the thing about the Flea Man is he's super inconsistent. Like, it's not fun to fight him. That's the thing.
And, like, in the level that they are introduced, at least they die in one hit. But then they're a boss, and they don't do that during the boss, which compounds the problems like 100%.
Their movement's just... Their movement is erratic to the point that I never figured out a pattern, and the only way I could consistently beat the Flea Man was by moving forward just enough so he would start moving, and then moving backwards so he would despawn off screen.
Yeah, you did eventually figure that out. That was really funny, actually. And then after that, you've got Death, who is, I believe, known as the hard... Like, a lot of people consider him the hardest boss in the game, by far. He is infamous for just being balls hard. Most people say, like, just use the cheese strat. And the cheese strat is having double or triple shot alongside holy water and just stun lock him to hell. That's how I beat him.
I don't even know what double or triple shot means.
So at one point you picked up a thing that had the Roman numeral for 2 on it.
Okay.
If you remember that at all, that's double shot. And if you have double shot, you can pick up the triple shot. And basically what that does is you're allowed to throw out 2 sub-weapons in rapid succession. Otherwise, you can throw out, like, 1 thing of holy water, and you can't throw another one out for a couple of seconds. But with double shot, you can just bam, bam. And then triple shot, obviously same.
I don't like, okay, some people were saying that, like, they feel like the bosses were designed so you're supposed to cheese them. Like, that's the intended thing. And I don't like that. I think that's outright bad, because
I agree with them and also agree with you. Like, I feel like the bosses are built specifically for you have to get here with the right sub-weapon to do the cheese strat, or you're basically just not going to beat them on your first try, or even on your second, third, fourth, fifth, or sixth try.
Yeah, I don't think that's fun. I don't think it's fun to cheese stuff like that. Because the problem with that is that it assumes that I'm not playing to have a good time, I'm playing to just finish the game and say I did it. Which is my main problem with all of the bosses. And that it's, like, they're overtly punishing. And, like, I'm playing Hollow Knight recently, and it's a big point of comparison. And I know it's not fair at all to compare a 2017 game to a 1987 game? 1986. So we got 31 years. We got 31 years of game design wisdom to evolve and figure this stuff out. So it is a completely unfair comparison. But I'm still going to do it, because Hollow Knight right now, the difficulty in Hollow Knight is extremely well balanced, in that it is not an easy game. You cannot just do things too easily. But it's balanced because it's not punishing. You can, at any point, as long as you have enough, what is basically mana, if you have enough, you can heal. And you can't just heal for free. You need to take a second or two to heal. And it takes time. You have to charge it up. But then once you do, you've healed. So if you make a mistake, you can undo that mistake easy. But you still, like, you don't just get a free win against it. You still need to take the time to figure out how to overcome that mistake, how to overcome whatever obstacle you were having issues with. It's a game that is extremely well balanced with its difficulty, where it is difficult, it is challenging. It takes a lot of skill to actually be able to overcome these challenges, but the game affords you a lot of chances to mess up and make mistakes and learn what the parameters of it are. And I did not feel that with Castlevania. I felt like making a single mistake meant more than likely the entire thing was unwinnable. And I don't think that's skill. I think that's rote memorization. And I don't enjoy that. And it's how I feel about the cheese strat. It's not skill, it's happening upon the one way to do it, and then not really gaining anything from the experience, not having a good, fun time overcoming a tense boss fight. It's feeling like it's just feeling like I overcame a challenge by banging my head against the wall until it broke through. And that is the biggest failure of Castlevania's game design for me, is that that's what the boss fights and a small handful of the levels are. And that is what frustrated me so much on my stream. In that, at a certain point, the game wasn't made for you to have fun playing with it. It was made to be an obstacle for you to overcome. And it didn't care how fun the actual overcoming of that obstacle was.
And some people enjoy an obstacle to overcome, but I think it's safe to say that me and you aren't that.
I think it's important that the actual act of overcoming that obstacle is itself fun. Like, in a game like Hollow Knight, I have fun failing because a long, tense boss fight, even if I eventually lose and have to do it all over again, like, if that fight is a real test of my skill and it's like a push and pull, I make a mistake, I pull back, I heal, I play conservatively for a little bit until I have enough mana to heal all the way, and then I get back into it, go all aggressive. It's like, it doesn't give me a free win because I need to be careful, I need to know what I'm doing, but it affords me a lot of opportunities to really feel like there's a push and pull going on to the battle. And I don't feel that in Castlevania. In Castlevania, I feel like, okay, I have a save state at the start of the boss. If I take a single point of damage, I just go back. Because there's no point in continuing from there. And that's lame. That's not fun.
It's also, like, that kind of ties into Castlevania has the same problem that Kid Icarus had, which was, yeah, you have a health bar, but if you make any mistake, you're just screwed. Health pickups don't happen. There's maybe one chicken per area.
Yep.
And you have to find it. Like, it's another one of, I think you brought this up in your stream, but you and I aren't huge fans of the mechanic of, well, yeah, there's health pickups, but they're rare. And not only are they rare, they're hidden. And there is no, like, hint The blocks in the wall that have chicken in them are visually indistinct from the walls that don't.
I don't take huge umbrage with them being hidden, but there needs to be way more of them if they're going to do that.
Yeah. Like, I've looked at maps. There is about, on average, pretty much one chicken per area.
Which isn't enough.
Yeah. Especially since, at least in Kid Icarus, you got health upgrades, and you got more health as time went on.
Yeah.
But in Castlevania, you don't get that. You don't get stronger in Castlevania.
Yeah.
The idea is that you're supposed to get stronger by getting better at the game, and I understand that, but the game didn't feel balanced around that. It just felt balanced around, fuck you, now you're stuck here.
And it's not fun, I think, to do, like, rote memorization tasks over and over and over and over and over, doing the same thing where you've already overcome the challenge. You have done a good job overcoming the challenge. There is nothing new from you taking the time to overcome the challenge again, but because you don't have perfect muscle memory, and you made a small mistake, too bad. You gotta go back and do it again. And this is, I want to stress, this is a problem I only had on the boss fights, which is why I was so positive on the rest of the game as a whole. But, like, it's a matter of getting to the boss fights requires you to have that rote memorization in the levels. And it made the levels, therefore, less fun. Because the boss fights, you just had to get there perfectly so you had full health, and then you had to basically get lucky. And it's like, I could probably get to the point where I'm so good at those fights that I don't make a mistake and can do them without getting hit, but I don't want to have speedrun level precision just to do the basics.
So, on a very similar note, I said I would bring it back up, and here I am. The infamous hallway.
I didn't have trouble with this hallway personally, but...
You didn't. You did very well at this hallway. And here's the thing. I don't think this hallway, in general, is bad. I think it's fine as it is. My problem is with the specific placement of this hallway. So, for people who do not know, the hallway I'm talking about is pretty much considered infamous among people that enjoy Castlevania. It's Medusa heads coming from both sides while you have to fight one of the axe-throwing knights. And eventually a second axe-throwing knight shows up, and you're dealing with two of them now if you haven't killed the first one. And this hallway is considered one of the more challenging sections of the entire game. And it's literally the room right before you fight death. That is the problem I have with that hallway. If it was located anywhere else in the game, alright, fine. It's not easy. I know you didn't have a huge amount of problems with it, but I was pretty bad at it. It's not an easy hallway, but, like, that's fine. It can be difficult. The problem comes with the fact that literally the exact thing you do right after completing this hallway is fight the hardest boss in the game. So I hope you didn't take any damage, because there's no healing.
Yeah.
And that is, I think, one of the places where the problem you just described really, really rears its head the most. Because it's just like, fuck you. You took damage in this super hard hallway. Fight the Grim Reaper now.
Yeah, like at that point, it's not a game to be played. It's a challenge to be overcome. And I don't... Like, the challenges themselves are too long for that.
That is not to say that the levels themselves are too long. 'Cause the levels, I believe, are a good length. In general. It's not like Kid Icarus, where Kid Icarus levels are fucking 700 years long.
Yeah. I was actually really surprised how quickly I was progressing through Castlevania.
And it's got good checkpointing, too. Castlevania has very good checkpointing, compared to Kid Icarus especially, which had none.
None whatsoever.
Like, the beginning of every stage is a checkpoint. If you get a game over, you go back to the beginning of the area. That's good. That's good checkpointing. One of the only big problems I had with, or another of the big problems I had was the existence of a level timer. It didn't give me huge amounts of trouble at any point, but this is not the kind of game that needs a level timer. And it was explained to me why there's a level timer. There's a level timer because Super Mario Brothers had a level timer, and all the cool games at the time had level timers. So you gotta put a level timer in your game. But this did not feel like a game. Like it feels like a game that's sort of a precursor to, and I absolutely hate to make this comparison, to Dark Souls, which is take your time, figure out the enemy patterns, don't rush, or in the case of the Medusa heads, don't think. But
the Medusa. I'm sorry to just go totally off topic for a second, but I just want to get this out of the way while it's on my mind. The Medusa heads are infamous for being super hard, but I actually really liked them once I started to figure out every time I got hit, it was because I was overthinking them, and I just needed to. Instead of making a plan about them, I just needed to keep my eye on them and react. And I actually ended up really appreciating that. I thought that was cool.
I think the Medusa heads are pretty well-designed enemies, all things considered, for that exact reason.
They're a contrast to every other thing in the game, but in a way that's really cool.
And I didn't have trouble with the Medusa heads, because that's my secret, Captain. I don't think.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm sorry, you were the Dark Souls comparison, taking your time and learning things.
Take your time, learn the pattern, except you only have a certain amount of time to do it. What are you doing? You're wasting time. Let's go, let's move, because that's what game timers are supposed to be. And yeah, they give you 500 seconds to beat the level. I don't even know how many minutes that is. But it's not like Mario Brothers where you're given, 100? So it's not that bad, and it never became an obstacle for me, at least as far as I remember. But just the existence of it in this game felt weird and unnecessary to me.
It felt like it was... if I didn't know better, I'd say, oh, well, they just reused the engine from a Mario game.
Yeah, and it was explained to me, and the person that explained this to me made sure that I didn't think they were defending the existence of the level timer, because they were not. But they were like, yeah, all the cool games at the time had level timers, so Castlevania had a level timer. It's just like all the cool games right now have crafting systems, so regardless of whether it fits in this game or not, our game's gonna have a crafting system.
Yep.
It's basically the same thing, just taken back to the 80s.
We're still in that era today.
Sure are. So, I don't think I have anything else big to talk about, other than, I guess we did leave off one boss.
Dracula himself?
Let's talk about Dracula.
Yeah, so Dracula is a book from Bram Stoker, I believe his name is. It's a very good story. I saw the stage play once. I enjoyed it very much, and I think my biggest takeaway from Castlevania is today I went on Audible and bought Bram Stoker's Dracula. They have a production of it for the audiobook where they have a whole cast of people. There's a different person doing the voice of each different character. I'm pretty hyped for this, actually. This is gonna be super fun.
How much of the fact that you are bringing up the audiobook of the original Dracula have to do with the fact that there's nothing to talk about with the boss fight of Dracula?
Yes, I mean, while I was playing the fight, I was talking about the original Dracula book because that was the most interesting thing to talk about at the time.
So here's the thing. My stream was a fucking train wreck. And I'm gonna take my L on that. My stream was awful because pretty much around the time where I fought Death, and then especially it came to a head when I got to Dracula, I was so done. And we both had relatively the same feelings of I'm not having fun anymore, but for very different reasons. Once we hit Dracula, I was just frustrated because I couldn't do it anymore. I didn't like the boss. The boss sucks. And you were bored.
Yeah. No, I was bored. And it's like, it's not like I'm a super good gamer that can do it in, like, one try. Like, no, I needed to do a bunch of different tries for it. And it's like, if I had sat there and really decided to grind it out and give it my all, like, yeah, I could have beaten it. But why? Why? What's the point? It's a fucking test of your muscle memory mechanical skills. Can you get down this rhythm and do it exactly correctly every single time? If not, fuck you. And if you don't like that, fuck you too.
For me, it was my main problem with Dracula, and you mentioned this a couple of times too, is he'll just spawn right on you.
I got to the point where I figured out how to avoid that and it wasn't a problem, but like it inherently made it harder to hit him because you had to be a lot more mobile and a lot more defensive.
And then his second stage is worse for reasons that you didn't actually run into because you had the holy water. I didn't have the holy water. So let me get into you about stage 2 of the Dracula fight. Stage 2 of the Dracula fight, he turns into this giant vampire bat monster. If you have the holy water, which the game does give you, it gives you a choice between that or the boomerang cross. I stupidly took the boomerang cross. You smartly grabbed the holy water. Holy water will stun lock him. It won't hurt him, but it'll stop him from moving. And that's good, because I don't know if you ever noticed this during the fight. You can't walk under his jumps unless he does his super high jump. And if he gets you in a corner, there's no guarantee he's going to do the super high jump. You might just be screwed. And it's 100% based on RNG, and so he can lock you in a corner and you just die because there's nothing you can do.
Fun stuff.
It's super fun when a boss puts you in a corner and you literally cannot move. So, and God forbid he does the fireballs while you're in the corner. That'll also kill you.
My favorite kind of fight.
And this is all made worse by the fact that for the first time in the game, now you have to whip him twice before he loses a pip of health. That final boss is bad. It's famous and iconic, and it's bad. And that is all I have to say on Dracula. I don't know if you have anything else.
No, not particularly. There isn't really much else to say about the game. I missed the credits entirely because I was focusing too much on talking about the game design.
Yeah.
I am aware of what they are, but I have not actually gone back to watch them.
I did learn recently, by the way, why old Japanese video games do that, where they're all fake names in the credits.
Why?
It was so their teams wouldn't get poached by other companies.
Interesting. That sounds illegal.
It probably is now. I doubt it was back then. But yeah, that's why there are so many Japanese games from that era where all of the names are like pseudonyms in the credits. So that's kind of interesting. But let's talk about what, in my opinion, is the single most interesting thing in Castlevania. I said I was going to start doing this every episode, and you said you were going to start studying them. Let's talk about the soundtrack. Most notably, just to get it out of the way, yeah, Vampire Killer is pretty good. It's the iconic song. It's pretty good. Now that we have gotten that out of the way, we both have the same favorite song, but let's start with Lay On Me, your least favorite song on the soundtrack, because I know we both have different songs that have been chosen for that.
So my least favorite song is the basic boss theme, because I don't think there's much of a song there. It's okay, it's fine, it's good, it's great, it's just...
It's better than the Kid Icarus boss theme at the very least.
Yeah, it's just like... There's so much going on, and it's like this is just such a game with such great music. And the boss theme is just an NES boss theme.
Yeah.
Like, it's fine, it's good, it's great, it's just... there's so much better in this game.
And my least favorite song is Walking on the Edge, which is the music for the sewer level.
Which I liked that song a fair bit. I thought it was a jam.
See, I don't think... Okay, so I'm saying that with in my head, I'm leaving off the boss themes because I don't like either of them. I don't like the final boss theme, and I don't like the regular boss theme. I just don't...
I think the final boss theme is fine. It's well enough. The Smash version's going to be better.
Probably.
I mean, you can hear it in the direct. It is better, but...
Just 100%, if going by stage themes, Walking on the Edge, I'm not a huge fan.
My least favorite stage theme is Stalker.
But fuck all that shit. We both have the same favorite song because it's the only good option. Look, Vampire Killer, it's good. It's iconic. It's great. Whatever.
Hey, Out of Time is really good.
Out of Time is good, but fuck all that. Wicked Child.
Wicked Child's so fucking good.
Child is a super good song. Like, with a bullet, for me, best song in the game.
During the stream, when that song was on, oh my god, this is, like, fuck Vampire Killer. This should be the most from this game, and it's just a JoJo OP.
It's such a good song! And, like, just in general, the Castlevania soundtrack is very good. It's iconic for a reason. It is the first game that we've played on the list that just has genuinely iconic, well-known music.
And unfortunately, the Smash Brothers version of Wicked Child is gonna be in a medley with Stalker.
I think it'll still be good. I think it'll still be very good. But who knows? I'm also not a huge fan of Stalker. Because I don't like the... I don't know how to explain why I don't like Stalker all that much. It's probably my second least favorite.
I just feel like Stalker isn't much of anything. It's kind of the same thing like about the boss theme, but in a stage theme that's like supposed to have more momentum. It's just there's not a lot happening in that song.
But that's all I have on Castlevania in general. You got anything else?
No, pretty much same for me. It's a good game. I think Castlevania is good with an asterisk of I would prefer to play a ROM with the bosses removed.
For me, I recognize that it is a classic. I recognize that it is a good game. I think it has problems, and I know it is not the game for me at all.
I'm frustrated because it was almost the game for me. Like the bosses just do too much to it. And it's like, I really, really want to love this game. Because there is a lot in it that I do love. But the bosses, they're just, no, I'm sorry. Thank you. Goodbye.
And I know you don't like Aaron Hansen.
Sure don't.
So I'm not gonna say you should go check it out. But for any listeners, when deciding which game to play, for the most part, it was either going to be this or Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest. But Simon's Quest is not considered a very good game at all.
Terrible night to have a curse.
Aaron Hansen, the very first video he made for his Sequelitis series, which I think is the best. I think it's the best one. I don't really like the other ones, not even the Mega Man X one. I don't even like that one. But for the Castlevania one, I think that video is actually very good and has a pretty good understanding of the design behind both of the games and why Simon's Quest didn't really work. So I would recommend looking into those because I think that video is very, very good. Regardless of feelings on Aaron Hansen himself, I know I certainly don't agree with 99.9% of the way he feels on game design. But this video I do think is genuinely worth checking out because the big problem with the Mega Man X one is here's a game I like, now let's compare it to a game I love, while Castlevania versus Castlevania 2 is here's a game most people agree is very good, let's compare it to its sequel that most people agree isn't great. So that's the last thing I got to say on Castlevania. What say we head on in to our next game?
Oh boy, here we go.
Our next game is, representing fighter number 13, released on the NES in 1988, Super Mario Bros. 2 USA.
And who is fighter number 13?
Oh, Peach. Hold on, I'm going to record that whole thing again.
I'm not going to let you.
Second.
So, Super Mario 2 USA, this is like the first game that I'm like really well familiar with. Because
I've never played this.
I had never at all, any form of it.
None.
Okay, then this is going to be interesting. So I had Super Mario Advance. It was the launch title for the Game Boy Advance that I had, day one. And it was it is the Super Mario All-Stars version of it ported to Game Boy Advance. It's pretty simple. And I feel like it is a very obvious black sheep in the Mario franchise because of the fact that it's not really a Mario game.
In fact, some might say it's not a Mario game at all.
It, in fact, literally isn't a Mario game. For those who do not know, Super Mario Bros. 2, when it was after being released in Japan, was deemed too difficult for American audiences. So they took a completely unrelated game called Doki Doki Panic, and they reskinned it and made that Super Mario Bros. 2 in the United States, which is why we call it Super Mario Bros. 2 USA.
Now, we did get the Japanese Super Mario Bros. 2 eventually. I believe it came out on Wii Virtual Console, and that was the first time it became...
It came out on Super Mario All-Stars.
Did it?
Yes.
I didn't realize it was on All-Stars 2. It was called The Lost Levels when we got it.
Yes. It was a big deal when it was released on Virtual Console, because that was the first time it was ever released outside of that pack.
Okay. I knew it was a big deal for some reason. I just didn't know for sure which one.
And Super Mario All-Stars eventually got the 25th anniversary pack on the Wii, which is how I'm going to be playing the game. I'll be playing Super Mario Bros. 2 USA in the 25th anniversary Mario All-Stars Wii version.
I will be playing the SNES version because I have been told that is much more forgiving than the original NES version.
We're gonna be playing the same thing. It's just mine is.
You'll be on a different platform.
Yeah.
The other thing is that this is the first game in which Peach was playable ever. It is also the game that introduced two characters that have basically just straight up become Mario characters despite not being Mario characters when they were created. Being Birdo, who has kind of disappeared from Mario in recent years. I haven't seen Birdo show up in a game in a real long time. And then one that has showed up in multiple games since then, the Shy Guy.
Now, and they, I think the Bob-ombs were also from this, but I'm not 100% certain.
No, I think Bob-ombs were introduced in 3. I think.
I guess we'll find out for certain. But yeah, and it should be noted, like, those characters, they weren't just part of the reskin. They were in Doki Doki Panic.
Yeah, they were Doki Doki Panic characters that became Mario, which is why I find it so weird that Mario Bros. 2 USA overall kind of gets ignored.
Yeah.
By Nintendo a lot. Like I said last episode, I put a song from the next game behind us while we're talking about this game. This song that you're hearing, which is just the song from Super Mario Bros. 2, that is the only song from this game that has been in Smash ever.
Which is a shame because the character select theme is so good!
It's weird to me that this game gets so ignored, and yet, two of Peach's most useful attributes in Smash come directly from this game.
Yes.
Pulling the turnips and floating. Those come from Mario Bros. 2 USA.
Yeah, and Mario 2 USA would actually get a pretty big sort of, I'm not sure like if the right word's homage or like even like soft reboot in Mario 3D World, because it has the same 4 playable characters as Mario 2 USA, and they have all the same attributes.
So like obviously Nintendo realizes that this game straight up influenced the Mario. I'd say this game influenced the Mario franchise more than Lost Levels did. I know a couple of things from Lost Levels came into the Mario franchise in general, but not as much as in this one.
Yeah, it's Mario 2 USA. I think is pretty good, and the music. There's not a lot of music because again, NES games, you don't have a ton of space on the cartridge. But the music that is there is all real solid. It's a great soundtrack. And the fact that the only representation it has in Brawl, or in Smash, is that one song that is just the original unaltered track, that's a big disappointment.
Yeah. So, what can you do? But yeah, those probably basically sum up the pre-talk on Super Mario Bros. 2 USA. Again, I've never played it. I'm kind of looking forward to playing it. At least I know it's a Mario game. It'll play well. Well, it's a quote-unquote Mario game. It'll play well.
Something that I do want to clarify real quick in case anyone doesn't know it, the title of Doki Doki Panic, some may be confused on that because you may have heard of a recent title named Doki Doki Literature Club and wonder if they're at all related. Doki Doki...
They're not.
Yeah, they're not. Doki Doki is a fairly common onomatopoeia in Japanese for the sound of a heartbeat. So it's basically like, thump thump panic. It's heart pounding panic, basically. So
look forward to that. I really don't have anything else to say on the subject of Mario Bros. 2 USA for now.
What are you going to primarily play as Peach?
I plan on playing as Peach. Not only because we are playing this game to represent Peach, but also because I've been told that Peach is one of the better characters. I'm told that Toad is the best character to play, but...
Toad is the best character, Peach is the easiest.
Well, there you go.
So that's the specific thing. Like, Toad is fast, and he's like, Toad is just very fast. His running speed is incredibly good, and the speed at which he pulls stuff out of the ground, he's the fastest.
But yeah, I will be playing as Peach during this game.
I'm conflicted, because we, by all accounts, should play as Peach for the sake of history. But I kind of don't want to, because she's the easy mode.
I mean, that's up to you in the end. I won't fault you either way.
We'll have to see how it goes.
But anyways, let's go ahead and wrap things up. First off, I've been really bad about doing this, so let me go ahead and do this now. You can find us on social media. You can find us on Twitter at Smashterpieces. Find us on Facebook at Smashterpieces. And you can find our website at anondino.squarespace.com, where not only will you find all of the past episodes, you'll find links to both of our Twitch accounts, and you'll also find a link to the public list of all the games in the order that we plan on playing them in, which, by the way, is sort of getting... revamped isn't really the word I'd go. It's getting reordered to be a little bit more accurate to the release dates.
Mm-hmm.
So some of the order is changing. I don't think anything's going to wildly change.
No, like at most, like the only things with the same year are getting rearranged.
As well as if other characters get announced, within the day we'll probably have figured out what games are going to be played for those characters, and they'll be on the list in the spot that they will be in. So if you don't want to wait...
You should probably actually rename that Google Drive that Google document to something different from just a placeholder when we just decided to do this idea.
Probably. But in case you want to look and see what the new games will be before the next episode comes out when we announce them, that's where that would be. And also just if you want to see what's coming up for the next couple of games, that's the place to go. So you can check that out. Again, that is at anondino.squarespace.com. So
that's us.
Go look into that. And other than that, I don't really got anything.
No. I'm excited to get to Mario 2 USA.
I'm kind of excited too, mostly because this is the second last game we got in the NES era. And God, am I ready to get out of it.
You're gonna hate it, probably.
who knows? Here's the thing. I don't know anything about this game, and I know that I at least partially enjoy the game that comes after it, so I guess we'll see. So, anyways, with that, I'm Joe.
And I'm Matt.
And we will see you all next time for Super Mario Bros. 2 USA.